Greetings. Welcome to ITR Live, the gold standard in Iowa conservative podcasting. We are here on a very cold and very blustery Friday morning for the first time that we have got 4 microphones plugged into this magic soundboard that I bought for this. But we're showcasing our equipment limitations here. But anyway.
And only 3 headphones, though.
Yes.
Okay.
So Chris Ingstead here is flying blind without the cool giant set of cans on his head. But John, Victoria, and I we're ready to go. We're going to do this right. So we're still sort of in election debriefing mode here. And one of the things that we're going to talk about a lot today. Probably not 30 minutes worth, Chris, I promise. But we're gonna talk about several things. But I want to explore our polling and how we did 5 versions of the ITR Foundation Poll and how we got it right, how we got it wrong, if we did, and sort of a review of that. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the outstanding election returns, but we got to get to our special feature first. I don't want to beat around the bush. We've rolled out a recurring special feature here on the ITR Live podcast, which is what did John get in the mail today? And to kick this off, John's gotten 2 packages here since the last time we had the poll. So we're just going to go ahead and get right after it. So John, what do you got? You have 2 packages. You've already spilled packing peanuts all over the floor.
Well, Chris, that was in the interest of the listener. We want to get these things halfway open.
Okay, good.
Yes. Good.
So the big box today, which I think today, you get usually the good stuff's in the big box, but I think it's not.
It's heavily bubble wrapped.
Yeah. Well, John has to put his microphone down to every good red-blooded American's got a pocket knife in his pocket ready to go.
At least they give you guys pockets.
That's true.
While he's opening this, does anybody have a guess?
Well, it looks like it's framed. We may actually have to put my editing skills to the test and see if we can't speed this up. Although Victoria listens on maximum speed when she's listening to the...
I feel like this might be like Founding Fathers level stuff, given the framing. We'll see.
If we had special subscriber-only content at the end of the podcast, we could have watching us all pop the little bubbles on. Oh, come on, John. Get after that thing.
Is it like this at your house on Christmas? Like 20 minutes later, John's
all
still
right.
opening.
So, John, we've actually got multiple cameras up today for the folks on YouTube. So you can hold this up to the camera that's straight across from you and show folks what you got.
And the packaging integrity is really strong.
No, whoever... Well, okay, so John put his microphone on. Warren Harding for president. They're going with Hoover last time. So, yeah.
See, by the time Hoover came around, they'd gotten catchy slogans like "Keep him on the job."
That's right. It's just vote for Harding.
Yes.
That's just
yes.
Not, and what else do you got today, John?
Well, this one was mysterious because I never ordered anything.
We're going to have to get you a little lapel microphone, John. Yeah, that's okay.
John says he didn't order this.
In fact, I contacted Amazon.
Oh.
I thought it was those ice trays.
Oh, John, those are fantastic.
John has elephant poppets.
Do you know what they are, John? Well, they're elephant poppets.
Pick up your microphone, John. We need to hear.
I'm not sure what these are.
Hold. So
This is a
Victoria, help John out here. What do we got?
It's a poppet.
John doesn't
It's
even know
a
what
fidget
poppets.
toy. It's
Here,
like bubble wrap that never ends.
We know how to use them.
Okay. You just pop them.
But here's the thing, John. Look, there's sort of a good side and a bad side. See, we're pushing these with no sound, but the flip side's got a good pop. Victoria's got a really good pop.
It's all the rage with the kids these days.
but I never ordered them. So that's why I contacted
That's how
Amazon.
good the cookies on Amazon are. They know what you want and send it to you proactively.
John's at his desk working hard. It just has to relieve some stress.
And if I found the right thing, it said these are for anxiety and autism. So I wonder if,
it's our neighbors here to one side of the conference room. Presumably they play ping pong during the day. I don't think they're going right now. So
should we? By the way, should we tell folks our neighbors on the other side of the complex? It's the Federal Reserve Bank.
Yeah.
So if you guys have thought about interest rates, talk to the ping pong players next door.
Yes. Okay. We got to get down to business, guys. That's great. John, you've got a lot of work to do with you. And you can pop those during the podcast if you'd like to work on them. Okay. So we know who won or lost in Iowa. We knew that within a matter of 12 hours. We had most of the winners declared. One close one. Apparently, if you live in California, you're only halfway home on counting ballots. There's weeks and months to go on that. I do not know how it is so well done in Iowa and in several other states. And it is so seemingly impossible to do this in places like Arizona, Nevada, and California.
Can I just offer a quick comment on that? Because
Yes.
I volunteered for, before I moved up here, I used to work the elections, volunteered.
Yes.
And Iowa has a very smooth and transparent process. And so there's accountability, and the paper ballots are there.
Right.
The machines are not hooked up to the internet. So there's accountability before and after the election. And so Iowa really does a good job, I think.
Well, and now this would be today, Friday. Yesterday, they run the audits on the results. The Secretary of State spotted where the counts didn't match up by 1 or 2. We'll run those through again. We do a great job in Iowa. And I do not understand why it is so difficult in these other states to run the ballots through the machine and get a count. It escapes me. So I say that, I guess, again, just like in tax policy, Iowa leading the nation in how we administer elections.
Yeah, because this is not an election denier take, so let's not go down that road.
Well,
but I mean, if anyone wants to, go ahead. It's not from my standpoint. But I guess what I'd say is when a state like Iowa accurately and fairly quickly tabulates the results, and yet other states struggle, doesn't that just open it up for questions and wondering what's going on? Why does it take so long? Who's doing what? Why is something coming in so late? It is not helpful for folks to have confidence in the integrity of their elections.
Right. And I think you would have people in both parties in Iowa would say, we do a great job. Why can't we have that same common belief in the system in other states? And to your point, it seems to me that the longer this drags out and the more the results bounce around, it breeds distrust in the elections. And if there is one fundamental piece of a well-functioning democracy, it is free and fair elections that people can have confidence in, that when their vote is cast, it counts, and it counts accurately, and it counts once. And there isn't a single election denier take in that anywhere other than everywhere in this country. We need to do it the best we possibly can. So anyway, that's my take on that. I want to talk about the ITR Foundation poll because we touched on this very briefly the other day when we were here with John and Victoria. But I said this at the outset of the show, we polled Iowa over the last year 5 times. And our results consistently saw what was coming in this election in Iowa.
Our results were consistent, period.
Yes. And I understand the ballot moves. I'm not saying that we should have the same result every time. But we saw things that weren't apparent in other public opinion polls, at least until the very end. But, just a few quick thoughts. Governor Reynolds won by 19 points, which is what we had measured her lead at in our polls. We knew that Senator Grassley was always had a substantial lead in this race and that his reelection was never truly in doubt. We had him in our, I averaged this up. In the last 3 polls that we did 3 of them between Grassley and Franken. The average of those 3 results was, on our polls, was 11.3%. In the final result was 12.1. That's less than 1 point difference of the average of our polls, which were all in a very tight range. And the one that I know, Chris, you're going to touch on this too, but we always knew that the AG's race was close. We were the first ones to poll this. And the first time we did it, we actually showed Brenna Bird winning. And then it bounced around a very tight margin. And it ended up being very tight. But other pollsters seem to want to say that that was a blowout and that Tom Miller was going to cruise to re-election. And I say that, one, because I'm proud of the work we did, but our polls nailed it. And I want Iowans to know that we're putting forth that kind of quality work that folks can depend on what we're doing. I see you guys nodding your heads, but did I nail it or?
I think you did, and I'll let Chris jump in. But could you explain to the listeners again that this poll is scientific and done professionally?
Yes.
I mean, because I think that's important.
And I want to give full credit to our friends at Signal that conduct the poll for us. They are a very reputable pollster. Yes, they work with predominantly Republican campaigns, but they have even the Des Moines Register. I know you'll get to this. Leans on 538 and Nate Silver for their rankings of pollsters. Signal is a B+ pollster at 538. One of the best they rate, and that's on previous election cycles. So we went to a reputable pollster that had a good track record of success, and they got us great results. And it is scientific. It is a true cross-section of the electorate in Iowa with full demographic breakdowns, and we share with you everything that we get. And you can find those results either at itrfoundation.org or at taxrelief.org. All the results are there. Tear it apart and look into those crosstabs and see what we're doing. But, Chris, something got under your kind of dug at you last night, and I know you had something you needed to say. So I want you to say it now.
2 weeks before the election, the Des Moines Register headline, front and center, above the fold, Miller has 16-point lead in Attorney General race. Not close to the results. Our poll had it around the same time, and certainly not close to the final election results. I mean, in my mind, 2 weeks out, proclaiming the 16-point lead, this is sort of the Register's version of Dewey defeats Truman, right? And fine, polling is difficult. No one has ever come on this podcast and said that Ann Seltzer and her polling team don't know what they do, and they're very good. We have said that multiple times.
Absolutely.
And we've said polling is hard, and that is fine. This was a miss for whatever reason, and that can happen.
And that was
fine.
a poll that they missed the Grassley-Franken number on, too.
Also, yes, but that maybe wasn't quite the headline grabbing and everything else. And that's fine. And yet, the Des Moines Register sent out an email last night trying to take a victory on the accuracy of their polling. And they say the only poll that matters is the one on Election Day. But candidates would be wise not to discount results if the poll in question is the Iowa poll. And then they lean on the results their poll generated that came out just 3 days before the election. I mean, this is almost like saying the exit polls were really accurate. I mean, like, well done that you nailed it right there. Making no mention of the big misses their poll had just 2 weeks out. And again, that's fine, polling stuff. But to come and try to claim a victory lap and talk about how wonderful the poll is, the audacity, Chris, to say, look how good we are so accurate, ignoring the headlines that you published. And by the way, these stories are still sort of front and center on their website. To me, this points to why people have a problem trusting the media, because you want to hold yourself out as one thing and the facts don't back that up.
Right.
And that's why folks sort of will discredit or mistrust what they read.
Very well said. And that's not to say that we're going to continue polling, and we may miss one as well.
We probably won't ignore our own results and just sort of cherry pick the most recent one and say we're wonderful.
Victoria's got to get in on this.
Surely you'd look at the numbers that came out in that Seltzer poll that came out. They polled October 9th to the 12th. I don't know how you look at that and think that that's accurate. I don't know that I would have been able to publish those numbers with a straight face.
Well,
I mean, you have to look at it and say, I think we missed, when everybody else had Grassley up over Franken by double digits or close to double digits, and they had a 3-point lead. And our poll was done in almost the same time frame, October 2nd through the 4th. And we had Brenna Bird up, I think, at that point by 3 points, which was within the margin of error here. But neck and neck, and they drop a 16-point margin. I mean,
yeah. I guess maybe what frustrates me a little bit, and I know it frustrated the Bird campaign, is those kinds of numbers shape the way people view these elections. And the narrative around the AG's race after that poll came out is this is over. Longtime incumbent, big lead. Both campaigns had spent money. This is over. Well, guess what? It wasn't over. And that's frustrating. And I'm look, Brenna is a friend of mine, and I'm glad she won. But yes, I can see where that's frustrating. And I know she's appreciative that we had consistent numbers out there that showed that her race was competitive. So, and maybe this is a cautionary tale on polling altogether, because I know a lot of conservatives especially are distrustful of public opinion polls in the first place. And there is probably a segment of the Republican base that just doesn't respond to them anymore. But all of them need to be taken with a grain of salt. And when you miss one, you need to own up to it, or at least not continue to hold yourself out as the final word on where these races
You don't
stand.
get to take a victory lap on this one.
Right. So we do, because we did a really good job this cycle. And I want our listeners, I want, Iowa politics watchers to understand that we've got a really good product we put out, and we're proud of it. And we're glad that we're part of the conversation. So, great. We got a few loose ends left from election night. It appears that everything is settled in Iowa. Is that, Victoria? You're kind of who I lean on everything. What is still potentially up in the air?
I think everything is done. I guess
now, there will be some recounts, right?
Yeah, and I haven't checked on Des Moines County. I assume they got their situation sorted out, and that's all.
I believe that one's done.
Yeah, and so we have officially then, once the results are certified, defeated the longest-serving Democrat in the Iowa House.
Yeah, Representative Dennis Cahoon from Burlington.
And possibly ever, actually, in the Iowa House. I have to go back to that list. If he's not the longest-serving House
chamber,
Democrat. Yeah.
In terms of total number of years, I could think of some others I'd want to look up. Maybe Jack Kibbe, Jim Lycum, maybe one of those guys. But they bounce, they were in different
He's been there longer
chambers,
than
yeah.
I've been alive.
No, I think that's right. Well, wow. Okay. Good. Well, I think we potentially have a recount Council Bluffs, recount in one of the Ankeny seats, and a recount in the state auditor's race. But I will say this, and I started at the outset of the show talking about how we do a good job in Iowa. I don't expect those results to change. And even looking back at the Miller-Meeks recount that happened 2 years ago, I mean, that was razor thin, truly, and you can change those results by maybe ones and twos, but not even by tens. So I expect that we know who has won or lost in Iowa. But yet we don't even know who controls the U.S. House or the U.S. Senate. And we are now 3 days after the election, and we don't know who controls these chambers in our federal government.
And I don't know if I'm down or up money on Predict It.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fairness,
if we're looking at important stuff here.
There's other places where you may have wagers and you're unsure.
Yeah.
I understand the Japanese women's basketball team today.
Oh no, this is men's today.
Okay, sorry.
But no, they're underperforming a little bit. They need to step it up.
Good. Yes, and I think we've yay Iowa, right? And we do a great job. But I want to close with this, and I want you, the three of you, to think about it, and I want our listeners to think about it. And I know that our folks out there do think about these things, but what's next? Okay, we got to the election, and that's not the end of it. You get the government you ask for on election day, but you also get the government you ask for after election day. And what are we going to do in Iowa with these big conservative majorities? What's next on the policy front? And what's next for our federal government? And where are we going from here? John has spent quite a bit of time thinking about that. You want to give us a preview of...
You'll need to pick up your mic again, John.
And there's a debate in conservative circles about where we're going with the next presidential election, too. But you're the intellectual center of gravity here on the ITR Live podcast. So we're going to lean on you to frame that up to keep our folks interested in what comes next.
I know we're running out of time, but I have a whole page of notes on that question.
Okay.
But I would just look at Iowa first and just say that I think one lesson we can learn from this election, looking at Iowa, Florida, even Ohio, and some of these other states, is that states are governing successfully in most cases. One of the reasons why Reynolds and DeSantis won such by large margins, and that gets me kind of, just on a side note, gets me a little angry, because looking at all the national news articles, everyone's championing DeSantis, which is understandable, but they're forgetting Iowa. You know, we always kind of get forgotten. But I think what Governor Reynolds has shown is that conservative policies can work, and I think what we're going to see is a continuation of that as she begins her new term and as the legislature comes back. Now, on the federal level, there's a lot of questions to be asked about what direction the Republicans are going to go in. And I think there will be, I hate to say it, but I almost want to predict a civil war coming within the Republican Party nationally over what direction that'll be. And I think
The Tree of Liberty from time to time, right? No.
Yes, yeah. But I mean, there's a lot at stake on the federal level, and there has to be some serious questions about, what happened, because if you look at the factors leading into this election, this should have been a massive red wave for us, and we still might get Kerry Lake and Blake Masters and forgetting the guy
Adam Laxalt.
Yeah.
Right.
As those votes are being counted. But I'll just say, just one final point is that keep in mind, too, that Ron DeSantis endorsed all these candidates as well. He endorsed the governor, the Republican Mastriano. He endorsed Kerry Lake, J.D. Vance, Blake Masters, and Dr. Oz. So, they may have not been the best candidates, but I think what Republicans need to do is focus on what I would consider the core issues of America First principles. And I think that's where the future of the party needs to move in.
Here's what I do know, is that the two, in my mind, biggest winners on election night were the people of Iowa and Florida, where their conservative governors who led on conservative principles, kept their states open, kept their states free, cut taxes, and adhered to those conservative principles that you talk about, were rewarded with huge victories. And whatever debate we want to have inside the conservative movement or the Republican Party, is that those principles, when effectively put into action by governors or leaders with the courage to act that out and a solid record of accomplishment, will win. Is their voters in those states that were very recently very purple, is that those voters in those states appreciate that level of leadership, and it needs to be a model for the path forward for our party and our country. That's what I know. And we're going to talk about it a whole lot more in the future. John.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything
Good.
you said.
All right, Victoria, at least you're still smiling.
I was just thinking about all those people walking out on their lawns, kind of lawns, because it's Texas, to pull their Beto O'Rourke signs out of their yard yet again.
Yep, it's great. They'll probably get a chance to do it again in a couple years, so who knows?
Just give it time.
But, all right. Well, that's all the time we got for today. So, okay. Now, Chris is invoking executive privilege. He wants in one more time to wrap things up.
Guys, it's Veterans Day.
Yes.
We should have let off with this. Freedom isn't free. Thank a veteran. The freedom that we talk about, you should not take it for granted. It's not a given. It's one generation away. Frankly, it is the men and women who volunteer to keep us safe, to promote American values. That's the difference. It's not even a generation away. It is the folks in uniform right now and in the past that are what separate us from all of that. You know, take time to reflect. Thank some veterans. Thank some active duty folks. Whatever you want to do, but let's not like skip over that today or this week.
Amen. We should have led with that. Well, good. Well, that's all the time we have. We're already into overtime. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe and give us a good review. Share it with your friends. And make sure you tune in next time on our next episode. So thanks to the three of you for our first 4-person ITR Live podcast. And with that, we will see you next time.